This hasn't been a game trilogy that I really enjoyed, maybe because I don't consider myself a fan of RPGs of this style, or maybe because I suck at these games. The point is that today we have the closing of that trilogy once and for all. Welcome to Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury. If I can honestly say anything about how hard I've been struggling with this saga, it's because of its difficulty, and I'm not talking about difficulty aimed at the skill of handling combos or mechanical inputs. However, with Boo's Fury, things took an unexpected turn. The difficulty was much more moderate, and I'm talking both about the damage the enemies deal and the guides that appear every time to give you a clue of where to go. The grace of the game is how comforting it is after finishing it with such a high difficulty, you may say. Well, yes, I won't deny it. In general, I like to play to relax and have a good time, not killing myself guessing where I have to do the next secondary mission in this city. The fact is that this difficulty nerf, so to speak, helped me to enjoy the experience a little more, and by giving me a slightly more decent interactive tutorial. I thought this was going to be a different story. Was I wrong? Here we are placed after Goku's death after the fight against Cell, practically just after the end of Legacy of Goku 2. In the other world, King Kai guides us towards the Grand Kai's residence, where we find many fighters who serve as reference points to remember the controls. They introduce us to several of the mechanics that we already knew. It's interesting how this has been one of the least predictable beginnings I've seen in Dragon Ball games, taking advantage of the material from the Other World tournament where Goku faces Pikkon. Interesting, but interesting in a good way. I like that the developers take different routes to start these adventures, and even more, I like that they managed to improvise a cinema-type scene within the gameplay aesthetic, using the traditional gameplay perspective but with new character designs. That's perfect. It shows that the technical limitations of hardware are no excuses to repress creativity, a very good point on its favor. Later on, the game continues to reflect the same rhythm as the previous titles, only with a little more marked fluidity, due to what I already said about the difficulty. In addition, the most important change in mechanics was the addition of a button to block. Thank God! Now you no longer walk around there without any protection whatsoever. Even so, something that caused me a little conflict is that the game encourages you to be more aggressive than before, but using only your basic attacks. The normal melee hits, since these do much more damage than the special attacks, which is strange. Special techniques are supposed to be iconic and have devastating effects, but all special attacks do less damage than normal hits. Means that you will almost always be defeating enemies while spamming fists in front of them. Also, they allow us to use various characters like Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, Trunks, etc. The abilities of each character still show very minimal changes, only in some small exceptions can we see unique traits. Even so, the use of the inventory felt more intuitive, more accessible to be used as another tool in the repertory of skills. We can equip high, low clothing accessories, dull items and amulets, all with different effects on the character's stats. Likewise, the objects that are collected individually or that on some occasions are given to us by some characters in missions are in a separate repertory in the inventory, where you can use their effects at any time. They can help you recover health, recover energy, and also increase the amount of experience you gain while you have that object equipped. Each time your character levels up, you are allowed to manually increase the stats of each attribute, so you can focus on the strengths you want for that fighter. I felt more comfortable with that aspect in previous games. I'd also like to emphasize how carefully they are in linking the events of the manga with what happens in the game. This is a huge advantage they have, being a genre that allows free movement through areas and constant interaction with other characters. I felt like the story unfolds much more naturally than in other games. This is the strong difference between what is a good narrative rhythm making use of even movie material, including it in the same time setting. Great addition with Janemba. They do an incredible job to integrate this movie. It feels genuine, as if it really could have happened in the same time setting as the conflict with Boo. Unlike what happens with a story like this told by Pulse with fights and static images with dialogues. Everything has more truth, Something that was talked about a lot was the zone navigation system where you went to the next points of interest. Now in Boost Fury you could adjust the height at which you flew, making it so that depending on your position in random places on the map you could face enemies in a submarine or in a hot air balloon. Quite out of place, but that gives a little breath between missions that not everyone expects. As I progressed through the story I felt comfortable. I wasn't having the time of my life, but it was entertaining. Also in the level that we must fight against Boo as Gotenks, we have a small series of commands that we must get right in order to make the fusion and be able to beat Majin Buu. The interesting thing is that if you fail, you become one of the deplorable versions of Gotenks and they allow you to play with him. It's great, however it's only for a short period of time. In terms of level design, things were balanced a bit. This RPG experience no longer felt like a constant punishment for the player, but also facilitated many elements that were almost inaccessible in the past. Leveling up is much faster. Every minimal number of enemies levels you up, and again you can improve your stats. The inventory allows you to carry items and heals you instead of having to use it the moment you find it. By the way, Broly makes a small appearance that, unlike what happened with Janemba, this one comes out of nowhere. This was included like a small fan service element to gain game time when you use Goten. The game added a multiplayer function in which you can connect two Game Boy Advance and fight. I imagine that at the time it was a fun addition and punching your friends a couple of times must have been pretty funny, but it's not all a game structure to have multiplayer. It's not even worth explaining why. It's unbalanced everywhere. In the end, this title didn't have the same recognition as Legacy of Goku 2, and I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't have a better time playing this game than its predecessor. Maybe it's because of the difficulty issue that makes it much more digestible, but it's not a bad game at all, not even close. You may prefer this one or Legacy of Goku 2, but the truth is that they left a good legacy of RPG genres for Dragon Ball in this generation. Guys, I really appreciate your patience while I was working on this review. I hope you enjoyed it. That was all for today, and I'll be watching you in the next video. Take care and see ya.